If you're a cyclist of any kind, you have probably felt back pain, especially that nagging lower back pain while you're riding long hours in the saddle. And it often does more than just limit your on-the-bike performance. Sure, it may be the reason that you can't keep up or can't keep going past a couple of hours on the bike, but it also can be the reason why you can't bend over and play with your kids. And I'm sure that stings a lot more than the riding aspect. And if you're just like an average rider experiencing back pain, know this. This 2010 study interviewed 7 pro cycling teams. They found that 45% of those who reported an injury, it was lower back pain. And an even older study from 1996 screened 500 cyclists and found 60% of them reported lower back pain as well. And so a lot of us hear this kind of stuff and think, the pros are dealing with it. If the pros are dealing with it, then it's normal, right? But normal doesn't mean it's good. For example, paying $11 for a Starbucks coffee isn't a good thing, but it's normal. Much rather drink from my mom coffee cup. And so if you're a rider who's dealing with back pain, first of all, know that you're not alone. Second of all, in today's video, what we're going to touch on is a deep dive into lower back pain. We're going to talk about some of the common causes. Not all of them, but some of the most common ones that I've seen with cyclists and why they happen. We'll talk about some of the muscles involved, the spine. We'll also talk about some short-term and long-term relief, touching on strength training and some things that you can do right now to relieve lower back pain, but also to prepare yourself for the future. So this is a little bit of a longer video. I'll have timestamps listed, but I do encourage you to watch in context to know whether an exercise is actually right for you or not, because it may not be. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, first thing to understand is there is no single cause for back pain. It may be different for every person. We can't just point and be like, posture, because it might be different for every person. And so the difficulty is that there's no one cure either, because what works for you may not work for somebody else. Each rider is different. Each person will have a different set of requirements that they'll need to do to recover. But the first, let's say, biggest one that I've seen has to do with posture and bike fit. So obviously when you're on the bike, you're in this forward leaning posture, right? Your spine is bent forward and flexed. And this prolonged state of spinal flexion, especially if the bike is not properly fitted to you, creates repetitive load on the lumbar spine, on the vertebrae, on the discs, right? On the bike, your upper back can tend to round forward as well, and your neck is sticking up. Now, at the same time, your hips and your legs are going through a limited range of motion. And so your hip flexors kind of come together and shorten because that's the position that you are optimally performing in, and they adapt to that. Remember, your body adapts to the stimulus that you provide it. But it's not just the hip flexors that are adapting. Now, a lot of the tissues, the joints, the spine, everything is adapting to this position. And as fantastic as that position is to get you more aero, to get you faster, to perform better on the bike, it's not a natural day-to-day off the bike position. And that's why you often notice cyclists have poor posture. They're rounded forward, their necks are sticking out, and their back is a little bit slumped when they're off the bike as well. And then on top of this, the longer hours that we spend in the saddle, the longer our tissues then adapt and stretch to accommodate these kinds of things. So especially if you're chilling in the drops for a long time, our connective tissue learns and it becomes stretched to accommodate this. And this is also a sensation known as tissue creep. Now, obviously, when you're chilling on your bike and your hip flexors are shortened, and what happens is those weak, shortened, tight hip flexors actually inhibit the glutes as well. And the glutes are some of the strongest muscles in the body. But when they're inhibited, a 2010 study found that weak glutes can actually be a contributing factor to back pain as well. And all of this just becomes so much worse if the bike is not properly fitted to you in the first place. Now, a lot of people can doubt how much a bike fit can really do. This 1999 study showed that something as simple as slightly changing the seat angle can go a long way, can have major changes in alleviating back pain. The saddle height, the saddle position, saddle angle, the handlebars, how far forward, how far back, the drops. These can all force the cyclist into a position that's not optimal for him or her, thus increasing the strain on the lumbar spine, particularly if you're overreaching. And so investing in a bike fit will go a long way. Now, a high quality bike fit is not just walking in, they ask you like, okay, cool, nice bike, looks like you need this, this, and that, and you're out of there in 30 minutes. A high quality bike fitter will take the time to get to know you, to ask you questions, to ask about your particular type of riding. What are you doing? What are you not doing? They'll ask about your daily activities, ask about your injury history or current injury. They'll ask about your riding goals if you have any events coming up. They'll take the time to pressure map to see your flexibility, your mobility, how you're moving off the bike and on the bike. Measure joint angles because joint position dictates muscle function. Evaluate the hips and the knees and the shoulders and how your body functions as a whole. What this will do is optimize your body to your bike, literally make you two one, like you're getting married. The two will become one flesh. But that will also minimize strain on your back, reduce pain on the bike overall, and even increase your power. And this is not just for the racers, it's for everybody. It's for all of us who want to ride a bike pain-free, especially if you're serious into cycling. Now, also, if you haven't had a bike fit in a few years, I urge you to go again and do one. You don't know how your body changes. A few years of just regular living, your tissues change, your joints change, bone density changes. If you've been training on top of that, whether you added a new training modality such as strength training or not, the body changes, the body adapts. Your movement patterns adapt. Flexibility, mobility, posture, joints, and all of these things change. And so where you were 6-7 years ago may not be where you are today. And I actually talk about this in a recent podcast I did with Victor Satalo, who is the pro bike fitter at Wolfie's High Performance Center in Abu Dhabi. I did my bike fit with him just last year. And let me tell you, I went because after I built up my bike, I was feeling some lower back pain. This was not normal for me. We get a bike fit, we spend 3 hours, longest time I've ever spent with a bike fitter. And I walked away, not only did my back no longer hurt, but my FTP went up by 10 watts. And so posture and bike fit will make a huge difference. Reason number 2, common reason that we get back pain: overuse and repetitive strain. Cycling is a very repetitive sport. You are moving your legs up and down, right? It's continuously pedaling and pedaling and pedaling. And that's going to put mechanical stress on the body, on the back. And over thousands of pedal revolutions, tens of thousands even, depending on how far you're riding and what your cadence is. And if you don't have a good posture and bike position, all of these things add up. Even if they're tiny, tiny things, these minor misalignments, these tiny muscular imbalances, they add up after thousands of revolutions. And they kind of cause this cumulative micro trauma on the body. And to understand this, we need to understand the spine. A neutral spine, which I don't have right now as I'm sitting and talking to you. I should probably put a pillow behind me. 1 second. This is better. Ho, ho, ho. Let's put Santa right behind me. That's nice. A neutral spine is made up of a few things. Number 1 is the neck, aka the cervical spine. And this has a gentle lordosis already into it. Lordosis is the inward curvature towards the body. Then you have the thoracic spine, and that's between the neck and the lower back. That has a natural curve as well, but the opposite way, called a kyphosis. And then you have the lumbar spine, which also has a natural curve, and that's what most cyclists, this is where most cyclists get pain, and that has a natural lordosis as well. And the spine is made up of these vertebrae that stack on top of each other. And between the vertebrae are these basically like these little spacers called discs. Now, the spine has the ability to flex, to bend, to rotate, to extend. However, if you're bending and extending and rotating it too often and too far, these discs may crack. Dr. Stuart McGill, when he wrote Back Mechanic, likened it this way. Where is it? Here we are. The spine bends much like a bending rod. The discs deform to allow the bending motion. Imagine taking a wire coat hanger and bending it back and forth over and over. Eventually, the metal will fatigue and break. The spine experiences the same cumulative effect with repeated bending. Eventually, the discs will crack and the inner gel-like nucleus will seep through the outer wall. And this is the source of pain in many people. In fact, this 2004 study found that cyclists with lumbar back pain showed a trend towards increased lumbar flexion and rotation and associated co-contraction of the lumbar multifidus, which is a muscle known as a key stabilizer of the lumbar spine. AKA, to put it into human language, chronic repetitions of these movements, which we make sense, we're going to be repeating these movements, right? And at the same time, rotation in the hips. I feel like I'm doing a little dance right now. While the lumbar spine is flexed, especially during long distance ride or intense training sessions, can fatigue the lumbar stabilizers, the muscles that are there to stabilize our spine and increase susceptibility to pain. And Dr. McGill actually states in his article, Core Training, Evidence Translating to Better Performance and Injury Prevention from 2010, saying evidence of the process of disc herniation provides a proof of principle. For example, the damaging mechanism leading to herniation is repeated lumbar flexion requiring only very modest concomitant compressant loads. This trauma accumulates with little indication to future patient. With repeated flexion cycles, the annulus breaches layer by layer with progressive elimination of the layers. And on top of this, all these literally repetitive injury, you're repeating and repeating and repeating and overusing and causing strain. We also talked about tissue creep and how the tissues can extend to accommodate for the positions and loads that you're putting it in. And then all of this is even worsened by our third cause of lower back pain, which is the lack of core stability and muscle imbalances. So many studies have shown that a weak core is a central contributor to lower back pain. Now, here's the thing about core strength. The sit-ups, or what else do people do? The penguins and all of these things are not necessarily going to translate to on the bike performance. And when we're talking about core strength, we're not talking about maximum strength, because very rarely are you using the maximum core strength that you can acquire on the bike. And also, just while I'm here, when I say core, I'm not just talking about the rectus abdominis or the six pack, which is what most people think of when they hear the word core. The rectus abdominis, the obliques, the transverse abdominis, the erector spinae, and many other muscles contribute to your core. The lack of core stability shifts the burden of stabilization, stabilizing your body while it's on the bike and stabilizing your spine onto the lower back. The core group of muscles are incredible. They allow you to jump and kick and run and lift heavy things and transmit power through those big, strong, juicy legs of yours onto the bike. However, there's a massive mistake that we all make. Just because you go to the gym and train abs does not mean that you've trained your core, and does not mean that your core will support you on the bike. We can't, if you're training for performance, especially when training the core, you don't train it like you train the biceps. You don't train it like you would train your chest or your legs. You don't put it through a range of motion for 12 reps. That's not the kind of training that's going to eliminate your back pain or increase your performance on the bike. But it is the kind of training that's going to make your abs look good. And I talk about this in another video, just real quick. Training for performance and training for aesthetics are two different things, and you have to know what you want and train that thing. Because we get caught up in, oh, I want this and I want that, and then we kind of become an all-season tire. We're okay at everything and not great at any one thing. And if you just want to be the guy who's an all-season tire, the girl who's an all-season tire, by all means, be the all-season tire. They're great, they do stuff, they work. I have all-season tires in the car right now. But just know that you're not going to excel in any one thing. Anyways, while I'm at, just a side rant. A stable core provides the solid foundation for your lower limbs, for your legs to generate force through the hips and pelvis, to generate force efficiently and put it into the bike. When those deep stabilizers, when the core muscles, the transverse abdominis, the multifidus are underdeveloped, the lower back is taking that strain, and that results in pain. The core functions to stabilize and protect your spine. And so you need to learn the skill of developing stiffness. This is what you need to be like, so that if we put pressure on this, it will not break. It will not crush. Without adequate core support, your body has to compensate and recruit these other muscles that weren't designed to do these things, which can easily become overworked and tight and painful. And finally, the fourth reason is poor movement patterns off the bike. Let me put Santa a little bit more behind my back. Sure, you may spend 2 to 3 hours on the bike every day, and that's like a little bit on the higher side for most of the athletes I work with. That's very on the higher side. Most of them spend 1.5 hours every other day. But even if you're spending 2 to 3 hours on the bike, 4, 5, you are still off the bike for the other 19, 20, 21, 22 hours in the day. And so whether you're training, strength training, whether you're just chilling at home, lying down on the couch, eating, sleeping, working from home, going to work, picking things up, brushing your teeth, tying your shoelaces, all of these things, you could be subjecting your spine to positions that will cause problems later down the road. Habitual poor movement patterns add up. They really do. And they exacerbate. It's a difficult word. Exacerbate? I think that's it. Back pain. Exasperate. All right, so now that we've got the causes out the way and we kind of understand the spine and what's going on and how it's working, let's talk about some short-term and long-term strategies that you can employ today to get you pain-free. Short-term strategy number 1, probably the easiest of them all, is resting. So take some time off the bike, reduce your training load a little bit, reduce your training intensity a little bit. This gives your tissues time to heal, to recover, to adapt. And make intentional use of the time that you're taking to recover. Don't put yourself in those positions. Don't spend the rest of your day in bad positions that are going to compromise your spine and hurt the tissues in the back. And this one is especially important because a lot of us jump into a high training load. So for example, it's base season right now as I'm recording this for many athletes. We jump into a very high training load, go from 0 to 100 or 40 to 100. And just that extra volume and load and intensity and frequency, if our tissues aren't used to it, can cause back pain. You're gonna be like this. Okay, number 2 is both a short-term and a long-term one, but I'm going to list it out anyways because it's back to our first cause, get a bike fit. Because something as small as adjusting the saddle height, the saddle tilt, the position, the handlebar reach, these are all paramount and will change things in the short term and in the long term. A reputable bike fitter will not only get you out of pain, but will also help increase your FTP. So if you do care about performance and not just comfort, big win there. Number 3 is some gentle stretches. This is the stuff that we always see when we're on the bike and then you kind of do that. So let's just talk a little bit about why this works and why this is not a long-term relief. Why this works is because when you're stretching the opposite way, you are essentially putting yourself through something that's called the stretch reflex. And this is going to provide you a lot of short-term relief. It feels great in the moment. But if you're doing something that's actually going to be putting your spine under worse conditions and worse positions, that short-term relief is just going to cause more problems down the road. And so gentle stretching, not haphazardly stretching your body as if it's a toy or a piece of gum or a wire, but gentle stretching that are still going to protect and keep you aware of your spine can help with short-term relief. But again, when we address all the long-term stuff, you're never gonna have to do something like this again, ideally. And the 4th thing that can help is massage therapy. And this again is very nice. There's nothing like a good massage after a long ride. I remember when I did one of my first races, I walk back to the car and I'm like, and my whole body's in pain and my legs are cramping and everything is in pain. And I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna get a massage. It was the best thing ever. Pro cyclists understand this, and that's why you're always seeing pro cyclists after a stage, every stage of the Tour de France, they're going and they're getting massages. It's not like they're going, the massage therapists are coming to them, which is kind of cool. Imagine having your own massage therapist just at your call. Wow, how cool would life be? Let's talk about some long-term solutions. This is the stuff that's going to actually keep you out of pain long-term, which is, I hope, what you want. And number 1, strength training. And this is going to be a little bit bigger, so we'll talk about this in depth here. Strength training is going to include everything. It's going to include breath work, soft tissue work, core training, prime movers, just training the movement patterns, your whole body by enhancing muscular endurance, correcting imbalances, taking you through proper movement patterns that protect the spine in and out of the gym, improving our neuromuscular coordination. We're able to get out of pain long term. So soft tissue work is involved like foam rolling. You could prepare the tissues in advance. So if you're going to be squatting, preparing the tissues, opening up the hip flexors, rolling down the quads can be nice. Some breath work, and I have a whole video touching upon the benefits of breath work, improving and increasing performance on and off the bike. And if you want to check that out, you can watch it here. Core training, this is what we've talked a lot about in today's video. So let me just give you a quick rundown of what this could look like training for performance and for protecting your lower back. Remember, you don't train your core like you would train your biceps. Shoulders, knees, and toes. You want to develop the skill of stiffness. And the other skill to develop is not just creating stiffness, but controlling it. Think of your core as on a dimmer, like this light here. It can go very bright, or it can turn off and you can't see me at all. And so if you're on a dimmer, you are able to control the stiffness that you create because, again, as we mentioned, I think this is too bright now. As we mentioned, you're not using 100% maximum core strength when you're riding, unless you're doing a very quick effort on the track or a huge sprint to the end of the finish line. But most of the time, if you're on the bike for 3 hours, you can't engage your core 100%, but you can have it on a dimmer and keep stiffness in there at 10% the entire time. And remember, the core is literally designed to protect and stabilize your spine and your back. And so by controlling and engaging it, we're able to take a lot of the pressure off the lower back. We're able to stop bouncing around and rotating in and through the torso, putting the pressure on the spine, on the discs. So just for example, here's an exercise you can do today that can prepare you long term. It's called a shielded breath. This is called a shielded breath. Putting your arms by your side here, feeling the ribs. You're gonna be coming in, taking a big deep breath and a tss on the way out as you hold the breath, engage the core, squeeze the glutes. So to start, nice big deep breath in, feeling the rib cage expand, and tss, feeling the core, bracing the core, squeezing the glutes, and relax. And then set up again for the next rep. Another exercise that can help you develop stiffness and also control, the obliques and transverse abdominis is side plank, which is gonna really help us to understand and work on the obliques and resisting rotation. You're gonna be coming down onto the elbow, stacking it up, making a nice 90-degree angle, everything here. Now from here, you are going to have your top foot forward, bottom leg back, lifting up from the hip, from the glutes, and from the transverse abdominis here. Lifting up, hold. You should immediately be feeling this, hips forward. If you don't, you want a nice straight line from the head, shoulder, hip to the foot, and breathe. Don't forget to breathe and hold. On top of this, strengthening the glutes and releasing the hip flexors. This is going to be something that's going to help you as well, because studies do show that weak glutes are caused by inhibited hip flexors, and weak glutes are also a contributing factor to back pain. And so pairing some kind of glute strengthening exercise with a hip flexor release, such as if you're going to be doing squats, pairing that with a hip flexor stretch at the same time, like supersetting them. Number 3, and this is an important part of strength training, is learn the proper movement patterns. You got push, pull, press, squat, hinge, lunge, rotary stability. All of these are movement patterns that you use in the gym and out of the gym in daily life. And remember, for performance, it's not just what you do, but how you do it. Learn to move about the hip. The hip is designed to extend and flex and rotate, and that's why it's a ball and socket joint. The spine is not designed like that. Learn to perfect the movement patterns before you start loading them. Don't be the guy who walks into the gym and ego lifts because your friends are squatting XYZ amount and have 2 plates on there, and even though you've never squatted weight in your life, you hop on and put the plates on there. Don't allow your ego to push you farther than your body is ready to go. And then most importantly for long-term relief is spend the rest of your day that's off the bike for the 22 hours, developing healthy movement patterns and healthy spine stability pattern, protecting your spine, protecting your back. Don't be sitting on your computer like this and flexing the spine. Have a pillow behind you, take breaks, walk around, learn to, engage the hips and flex and hinge the hips when you're going to pick something up rather than doing it with the lower back. You see, all of these things, these causes are solvable at the end of the day. Lower back pain is not an inevitable consequence of cycling. And just because it's normal doesn't mean you need to experience it, because this challenge can be addressed with the right solutions, with the right training, with the right program. So if you're watching this and you want to get out of back pain, I've helped dozens of cyclists just like you to do this. I'd be happy to get on a phone call to help you see what's going on and what exactly do you need to get out of back pain and to perform better on the bike, feeling more comfortable and becoming your best self. You can go ahead and book a game plan call with me down below. And while we're here, I'm also putting together a free group you can join in if you just want free resources and trainings and a community that can help you with your goals. You can click the link in the description to join that as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was insightful. Please let me know down in the comments what else you'd like to see, what other questions you'd like answered, and I'll do my best to get to them. We'll catch you next time on another video.